Greetings, everyone. Uh, I missed last week. I tried to do it, but I was in the process of shifting from being in Washington State to now finding myself down in Phoenix, Arizona. So I was traveling last week and over the weekend. So, it just wasn't working out. I was sore from driving, and I'm right now finally ensconced here in the Phoenix area. The astrology, I'm not going to overlook the astrology of last week because a lot happened. And because of what shall we call it, long footprint of the energy that was stimulated during this last week, I think it's going to remain overtly relevant for taking a look while I'm doing this week's consideration to bring in what it is that was initiated last week. Just going over really quickly what transpired in a nutshell last week is Mercury moved into Aquarius on Monday. On Tuesday, Mercury conjuncted Pluto. By the way, that was my birthday. Uh, on Wednesday, we had the new moon at 10 degrees of Aquarius. And on uh, Friday, Venus conjuncted Neptune, and Saturday or Sunday, I lose track, the Sun trine Jupiter. We should just basically go look at the chart. This was last week, starting out. I'm already on Wednesday at the new moon. If we consider what was transpiring for this particular new moon, because the new moon is an initiation process that looks at what's going to be transpiring over the next lunation cycle, because that's what a new moon is. It's when the sun and the moon come together. They ask you, from the perspective of solar dynamism, of energetic qualities, uh, and the moon. What do you feel like? And what is the collective concern that is taking place? And at the individual level, each new moon is a time for us to consider in whatever sign it happens to be in, what is my intent to accomplish during this next lunar cycle? Well, so you need to be aware during that process of setting your intentions, what's going on. So this new moon, which happened on Wednesday last week, also was the very first day of the initiation of the Chinese New Year. And the Chinese is a very different astrological thing. Still works, but this is the year of the wood snake began on that same day as we were having our new moon. That gave, excuse me, a pretty strong signature to what was being initiated for this particular new moon. A lot of powerful energies, and I'm using the term powerful quite deliberately because the Mercury and the Pluto, you know, are quite close to this particular new moon in Aquarius. And so we have to make sure that we don't leave out what are we thinking? Mercury, you know, how can I effectively communicate in an Aquarius fashion, because these are all in Aquarius, uh, a meaningful context, if you will, on what it is that we, as a group of concerned individuals, when we come together, are going to be able to share and develop, if you will, uh, meaningful context within which our collective energy will be able to, facilitate, you know, a new kind of birthing process that will will enhance, if you will, each and every one of us, participants or not, or seeming participants or not, in the group energy cycle. Pluto, yeah, well, Pluto on this is right on my moon. So I'm, challenged to try to contain this energy because Pluto is power. There's a resonant drive wherever Pluto is involved to, in one sense, uh, want to make sure that the dynamism of change that is being considered is encompassing, if you will, the awareness of what is it that Pluto is about. It's just moved into Aquarius quite recently and will be here for 20 years. And so the process, this is the long footprint version of what this particular new moon is setting in motion. From the Plutonic side of the equation, you know, Pluto, the Lord of the underworld, has at its avail the capacity to be able to discover what is buried beneath the surface. Or another way to look at it is there are factors that not all of us are aware of that could, in some fashion, alter our perspective of living if we were aware of them. And Pluto's function is to, unearth, if you will, these discoveries of what is it that has been hidden from us and what might that alter or change in our perspective if we were aware of them. So, this particular new moon, you know, there are things afoot that, you know, we haven't been aware of that, you know, we should be aware of that are the goings on of, possibly things related to, let's say, social and political control things. It's like I've been having this one song. It keeps cropping up in my mind. And it crops up in anytime and anywhere that I am. And it's been coming in for months. And I I spent the weekend. I went up to Sedona to hang with Maurice Fernandez and the Sedona Astrological Group. There's an energy that is percolating beneath the surface. We'll call it that, and that automatically should bring up a version of what is it that I need to pay attention to. It was a great time up in Sedona. Way too many people because the weather was way too nice. It was like almost 70 degrees and weekend and everybody was there. But this particular song, you know, it just kept playing over and over in my head the whole weekend. And it's been, it's not just the weekend. It's been playing in my head for, let's say, ever since the election, perhaps. I'll just play a couple of, parts of the song. You will know it.
something happening here. But what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware.
You get the drift. There, and that energy, it's not minor. This is huge. 1967 when Buffalo Springfield came out with this song, we were my particular generation of teenagers that were being sent off to fight in Vietnam and stuff. I graduated from high school that year, had a rating of 2A and number 36 or 4 or whatever it was in the scale. This, our collective awareness of what it was that was going on was that something was extremely out of balance to facilitate a war quality for natural resources. Usually that is the case. But anyway, so that's the kind of the energy that was in the process of doing the dance with us this last week being initiated. But, you know, on the longer footprint, you know, that Plutonian energy coming into Aquarius for the first time in, 200 and what, 50, 265, 250 years, a long time ago, back during the, oh, what do they call it? The American Revolution. Hmm, there's there's something happening here. And, that song, I can't get it out of my head. Now I've given it to you so you can play with it in your own heads. But anyway, this last week set in motion our collective process of, setting an intention that is going to carry some merit with it. The beginning of the Chinese New Year, our new moon in Aquarius saying, is there a capacity that we need to share with one another, essential Aquarius, that hasn't been shared before and needs, from that plutonium side, a new version that is willing to take a good, honest, and hard look at what is going on here. Anyway, the week went on. What else happened during that? Oh, and Uranus stationed also sometime during that week, I believe, too. So the Uranus did the great disruptor, perhaps is a good way to say it. But there's a reason that Uranus is, has been given that handle as a disruption thing. It shakes and rattles and rolls things, but there's a reason for it because Uranus's purpose is the great awakener, Prometheus, trying to bring an awareness of what is going on that we weren't aware of. And sometimes, actually, usually, in order for that to transpire, there needs to be a discomfort, if you will, a shaking, rattling, and rolling underneath so that we're not feeling too stable and secure in our ways so that, we can actually perceive that something else is going on. And that is part of the awakening process. So you can kind of see that this last week's energy, new beginnings, and new initiation wants us to, you know, really look very intently, Pluto, intense and powerful at what it is that we stand for. So here we go. Today's Sunday, beginning of the new week. I went and just looked to see What all is transpiring? Well, right off the bat, I see that Venus, north node of the moon, and Neptune all at 28 degrees of Pisces. You know, that's a fairly powerful consideration, and it will become even more powerful as we continue to go on. Uh, the events that transpired up in Sedona over the weekend was Maurice was talking about planets being on the eclipse points. Well, we're heading to eclipses, but they won't arrive until March. But this, 27, 28 degrees of Pisces is one of the degrees where the next uh, eclipse, I think it's a lunar eclipse, I can't be sure, is going to transpire. So this energy, it's already underway. On Monday, on Monday, Jupiter down here, which has been retrograde for a while. Let's see. It's been retrograde for, yeah, since, well, sometime last year. Goes direct, stations, stops right there at 11 degrees of Gemini. And from now on, the energy of Jupiter, how uh, much do I want to increase anything that I'm going to think about, Gemini, or talk about? You know, I've come as Jupiter to this moment where, it's no longer required that I'm going back and reconsidering things, the retrograde cycle. I have I have a mission, if you will, of going forward once again in the realm of curiosity, Gemini. There are factors that, you know, I have been meditating upon Jupiter retrograde in Gemini that have been stirring, you know, maybe in the background, energy factors that, you know, I've really looked very intently and says, how can I grow what it is that I have become aware of? Jupiter going direct provides us with, you know, maybe that boot from behind, that incentive to take a chance and say something about what it is that you have discovered over the last quite a while that Jupiter's been retrograde. And Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, up here involved in that new moon that we had last week at the same degree that Mercury is at right now, 10 degrees of Aquarius, is saying we need to wake up and do something together, Aquarius, that can be an inspiration to the potential for expanding Jupiter upon what it is that needs to be brought into our awareness. There's that Pluto side again. The energy is just at work. Um, on this very same day, I see, oh yeah, yeah, just to add a little, this Mercury right here is almost exactly trying to this Jupiter. They're talking to each other. Can can you feel that? We go on to Tuesday. Oh, see, the week's just unfolding like crazy. We already made it into Tuesday. On this day, Venus shifts from Pisces, where it's been exalted for a long time, into Aries. Whenever a planet shifts from one sign to the next, I think you have to sense in some fashion that a hat has to be changed. A version of what it is that has been transpiring related to whatever the planet happens to be is no longer going to be driving in the same fashion that it was. And Venus in exalted in Pisces has been asking us quite specifically from the version of how we get along with one another, the Libra side of Venus, and from the Taurian side of Venus, what are things worth? Added within the Piscean dance of, do you sense the potential for a meaningful life that can and does include a spiritual version of what it is that we are about? Venus shifting this week on whatever day it is, Tuesday, a Mercury day, a Mars day. Oh, yeah, and Mars. We will get there. Into Aries. It's like the new hat says, you know, any Aryan new moment is like, hello, you know, I really have no clear idea on what it is that needs to transpire, but, you know, there's an inkling, kind of like a burning core set of realities that says, I need to do something, you know. And from the Venus perspective, do I need to fall in love? Do I need to create an art project? And in that, how inclusive do I want to be of the other? Aries doesn't necessarily lean strongly into the land of the other because it's that first sign of the tropical zodiac saying, I am. It's about me. Yet Venus arriving there is saying, reminding the I that am is that I am not alone. There's a version of the life experience with Venus moving into Aries that is saying, hey, open your eyes. Other people have versions of what it is that you are that can be relevant to what it is the discovery of that I am you think you are needs to move into, not as a solo individual, but as a potential collective. On this very same day, the moon down here at, let's see, and the right day, 4, 4, 4. Uh, yeah, during this day, because the moon moves 2 degrees, a degree every 2 hours, will be the waxing quarter moon. They're in Taurus. And Taurus is its values at its essential level. What's worth? What is something worth? And this opening quarter moon in the lunar cycle that we're in, Dane Rudger described as crisis in action. So perhaps if you are inclined or not, you might ask yourself, did I or was I appropriate enough in what I set as my intention for this particular lunar cycle? Was it uh, encompassing enough, large enough to be able to really pay attention to the enormity of what is transpiring on the planet? Oh, yeah, no two minor things to think about here. The first quarter moon is always saying, I have a lot of things on my plate that I really want to do, And more often than not, it is uh, too much to really effectively accomplish without the requirement of being able to say, I'm going to, I'm going to do this. And because I'm going to do this, I have to let go of something else to give me the space, make available for me to, move in the direction that I'm sensing I need to move in. And so there's a kind of you know, a clearing of the decks at the first quarter moon to say, you know, this is the direction I need to go in. It's in Taurus. What is of value? What is of the most value here from the new moon in Aquarius perspective and all the things that it encompassed to be able to make sure that I am uh, embracing effectively that energy that I had the potential to set in motion for this particular cycle. The next part of the dance is our Mars, which, Mars is retrograde. Mars has been out of bounds for, a long time, and it will be out of bounds until early April. This Mars is trying to Saturn. See that? 18 degrees of Cancer, 18 degrees of Pisces. This is a water trine. Water element tries, if you allow it, to facilitate an effective flow of energy that is cohesive one with another. We have that driving, impulsive Mars energy in Cancer, not exactly its most comfortable, but Mars is out of bounds, so it has a potentially wilder, unpredictable side to it. In the sign of Cancer, picture, if you will, you know, I'm looking around my house, Cancer. I'm looking around home. Home is Cancer. I'm uh, I'm considering all kinds of things, but I'm considering it rather impulsively. And all of a sudden, I say, I need a new couch. And boom, out the door you go. I'm going looking for a new couch, or go online and look, or check the want ads, whatever. The impulse to change something about your living quarters. It's in the air. But that's not all that Cancer stands for. There's the ability to, you know, tune in, if you will, to the receptive, the feminine nature of really being in tune and in touch with your sacred side. And I'm throwing that sacred side in very specifically because Saturn up there in Pisces is in the realm of the sacred. Pisces is the realm of the sacred. And Saturn, it always has to do with a lesson plan. What kind of lesson plan might be being inspired? This is a trine aspect that we're talking about between Saturn and Mars that wants to, strike out. And, we got our Aquarian overarching energy in play with one another to say, is the process of being in tune with my roots, my home, my foundation, Cancer, able to be lessonized along a spiritual path that, you know, will be able to be harmonious with what it is that we as a group need to accomplish. And by the way, on the 5th, yesterday, the moon, when it was going through that first quarter moon, went out of bounds itself. It will be out of bounds until the 10th, which is sometime during next week. Uh, Moon out of bounds, you know, there's a there's a kind of a, if you just tune in for a moment to make sure you pay attention when you're at that first quarter moon experience here as to the appropriateness of what it is that you decide, because there's the potential for some flippancy to be present when the moon goes out of bounds. It's like, you mean there are rules about what it is we're supposed to do? I'm feeling a little beyond that. Out of bounds moon at the quarter moon, first quarter, it's like, yeah, I got a lot of things on. I'm going to try and do them all. Well, perhaps that's a recipe for burnout. Use caution there. Yeah, moon's out of bounds. Moon rules that, Cancer where Mars is, yeah, there's this impulsive kind of energy. Remember, Mars is out of bounds too. Perhaps there can be, some kind of shared energy back and forth as that moon and that's Mars say, maybe there's a new lesson plan that can tune me into the spiritual essence of who I am, Pisces. And I should pay attention to that. As the week rolls on, you will notice that the moon has crossed Uranus, Jupiter. It's moved into Cancer on Saturday. And on Sunday, it's holding hands with none other than that other out of bounds planet, Mars. These are the only two planets that are out of bounds right now. The One of the factors that often doesn't get recognized about uh, a depth version of what Cancer represents is that it is a connection to our ancestors. And you kind of go, wait a second, I'm just trying to get my hands wrapped around the perspective that we as a group kind of energy need to in this, incarnational dance, uh, hang with one another in a cohesive fashion. Well, this Sunday, these two out of bound planets, the moon and Mars, are saying, don't forget to include a version of what your ancestors, the reason why you're here, have set in motion. Are you tuned into that? You know, do you feel perhaps some synchronicities? Who gave me that message? It just appeared in my head all of a sudden, you know, and the ancestors knocking from the other side of the mirror saying, "Oh, oh, look, I think I think they hear us." This is part of the equation always, but every once in a while, it comes a little bit closer to the surface for us to say, you know, I am a part of an elongated version of incarnational being, soul being that, set things in motion for me to grow through from and continue to expand upon while here in incarnate that tunes in quite specifically to versions of the living experience that my ancestors set in motion and want me to make sure that I continue to grow with, through, and bring into this everyday experience of life in a new fashion so that it can continue to grow itself. On this day, also, you will notice that Mercury has caught up with the sun. This is known as Cassimi. When Mercury is within, let's call it a degree of the sun. So this was kind of like some of Saturday, some of Sunday, most of Sunday. Mercury and the sun are conjoined. And since this is a superior Mercury, it means it's on the other side of the sun. More important than the geographic positions or of these planets is the fact that they're together. The sun can represent regality, the queenliness, the kingliness of an issue. Mercury, any planet actually that comes into Cassimi with the sun, basically is being embraced, if you will, by whoever regality represents to give permission to that planet to, if you will, sit on the throne for a spell, being given the authority from the solar perspective and possibly set some issues in motion with the full support of that authority. This is Sunday, the sun's day, and Mercury, that ever so curious, potentially intelligent beingness, is saying, let's do this, you know, at the same time as this Mars and Mercury down there in Cancer. It might be kind of an inspiration to our Jupiter, which is now direct down there in Gemini, saying, yeah, go for it. This is, this is our time. This is what we've been waiting for. Please, please, please. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with one more, kind of final thought for being able to go forth from this moment for this, not just this week coming ahead, but something to keep in mind as we do this dance going forward in the long footprint.
It's time to stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn, and nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
So, what's that sound? Everybody, look what's going down. We got things to do. And from Phoenix, where I will be for maybe a month, I'm going to bid you adieu and invite you to make sure, pay attention. There's some dynamic energy afoot that we are all a part of. And we need to do something to make sure that that stays the case. Thanks.